Primer said the powder's lit. Once again, this is Yasuke Fed coming to you with another episode of the Black Powder Podcast. And today we are going to discuss the difference between justice and law, i.e. the comparison between the case of Ahmaud Arbery versus Kyle Rittenhouse. Two completely different cases. One is a case of complete and utter murder. The other is a case of self-defense. Of all the things that happened in the Arbery case, the evidence alone proves that it was murder. There is a huge difference in Ahmaud's case versus Kyle's case. To be honest with you, if Ahmaud's case was switched around with Kyle's case, Ahmaud might be on trial facing self-defense charges or murder charges in a different matter. If Ahmaud was the one that had the AR-15, and let's just say, for example, in his situation, he was running around to try and protect himself from being ended by these two idiots, perhaps Ahmaud might be the one who's alive, just like Kyle was in his case. Kyle had to deal with the circumstances of self-defense and defending himself, despite the fact, me personally, I feel like he shouldn't have been in the first place. But nonetheless, we as people don't get to pick and choose our situations. Sometimes our situations choose us. And that's why Kyle had to deal with the instance he had to deal with. It's obvious it was self-defense. Let's call it what it is. During the Black Lives Matter rallies, there were some riot activities. Not per se blaming that group, but let's be honest. Anytime something good tries to become a push, become a revolution, you always have those people who will turn around and try and twist it for their own benefit. It doesn't matter if you're trying to throw a party for your child or just trying to change the way that there's certain police laws are going. So yeah, there was some activity that was happening out there that, based on the way the laws are, was illegal. Protesting, not illegal. Rioting, fighting, killing people, breaking windows, taking over police stations, illegal. Nonetheless, Kyle found himself caught out there in a situation where he had people wanting to kill him. I would be hard pressed to find a human being that would not protect themselves in the same situation. It would be odd for a human being to just sit there and let a mob kill him or her or themselves simply because they were in the wrong or they felt that they couldn't protect themselves. The average human being has a right to protect themselves in any way, shape, or form necessary, should it come to that. The main weapon that should be used in any situation is de-escalation first before you have to take that action. But nonetheless, you have a right to protect your life, your essence. And that's what he did. If we were to take Ahmaud and put him in Kyle's situation, would he still be alive? We did have a black police officer, I believe his name is David Dorn, pass during the civil unrest. Was killed on the street. I don't know if they've caught his killers or not, but nonetheless, this man was killed on the street. Matter of fact, it was a man called Stefan Cannon, I believe. I've just found an article on CNN. St. Louis man has been charged with murdering the death of retired St. Louis police officer David Dorn, who was shot during a pawn shop burglary in last week's protest in the city. This is dated June 8th, 2020. And that was during the St. Louis riots after you call it death, but wrong treatment of George Floyd, the mistreatment of him, just basically the choking and treating him as less than a human that occurred on the streets that came to end George Floyd's life. David Dorn was killed by a young black man. Let's go ahead and call it what it is. It's not black on black crime because there's just as much white on white crime, or whatever you want to call it, whatever political term you would like to insert here. But there's just as much crime in general on either racial side as there is in black society. The color of the crime does not matter. The fact that on a night where a protest happened, a protest, not a riot, but a protest was happening, it just so happened somebody decided to take advantage of that, which led to the killing of David Dorn. Why do I bring that back up? Because I link it back to Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse may have been out there to try and do some medic work. He may have been out there to try and clean graffiti off of the walls or streets or property or whatever. He may have been out there trying to protect somebody's property, but nonetheless, Kyle Rittenhouse was out there whenever he didn't have to be out there. Hell, if Kyle was a man that was of 21 years or older, possibly even 18 at the most, not saying that it really matters, but if he was of an older mindset, maybe this would have been a little bit more explanatory. But it's just the fact that you got a young kid out there, age 17, doing the right, I guess you could say, but at the same time, no. He shouldn't have been out there in the first place. That was in my last episode. Taking it back to him. One of the main reasons why he shouldn't have been out there in the first place is the fact that during the peaceful protest, when the riots broke out, despite the fact that you have people wanting to keep the peace, it is extremely hard for a small group of people to control a large group of wrongdoing-minded individuals. So it doesn't matter if you are a retired police officer who is of advanced years in their life, or a young 17-year-old who's just beginning the start of their adult life. Wrongdoing is wrongdoing, and wrongdoing doesn't care who the victims are. But the law was on Kyle's side. Just like wrongdoing on a smaller scale in a small Georgia neighborhood, who supposedly had two individuals out there doing a neighborhood watch, police check, whatever you like to call them. Two unbadged, two individuals who had nothing to do with law enforcement, claiming that they were making a citizen's arrest, claiming that they were on the right side of the law, claiming that they had control of the situation and were deputized due to the fact that they are part of the neighborhood, took it upon themselves to end the life of Ahmaud Arbery simply because of the fact that they were on the right side of the law. Now there you have two individual idiots with the mindset of doing right, curtained behind the actions of doing wrong. Should you ever end up making a citizen's arrest, it should not end with the person you are trying to apprehend no longer being amongst the living. So as far as I'm concerned, Ahmaud got justice, and I hope to God they put these idiots underneath the jail. Lock it up, throw away the key. That's how justice should be served for everyone. Because if Kyle was in Ahmaud's situation, I guarantee you it would have turned out differently. They wouldn't be seeking to shoot this young boy at 17 years old. They wouldn't be seeking to chase him around a truck with a shotgun and potentially end his life, end his advancement towards his goals, his aspirations of becoming a nurse. They would be talking with him. More than likely, they would probably make friends. There is nothing lawful about racism, just like there is nothing just about racism. That is why those idiots ended up with the situation that they're in now. Just like that is why Kyle ended up in his situation like he is now. The only difference is both Ahmaud and Kyle's futures are dead. Ahmaud, quite literally, God rest his soul, he will no longer walk amongst the living due to the fact that his life was cut down way before he had a chance to completely develop and become a proud and functioning member of society. Kyle, on the other hand, socially he's done. Job-wise, he's probably done. They're already trying to kick him out of his nursing school. As far as him being able to find another school, it may be possible, it may not be possible. Nonetheless, nobody wants an angel of death operating on them. Because just like those two people in Georgia, Kyle took it upon himself to do what he thought was lawfully right. We all, as individuals, may want to do the right thing all the time, anytime, but nonetheless, we have to question the morals that we come into contact with. We have to question why we're in the situation in the first place. We have to question if we should even be close to that situation in the first place. Society is different. Society is very different nowadays. Because right after the verdict of Kyle Rittenhouse, there was a riot that happened in a pro-cop neighborhood in New York. Already one of the major goals of this whole movement has been to try and defund the police. But the one thing that we all have to realize is the fact that we won't have police like David Dorn, who is retired, who actually took it upon himself to go to this pawn shop and just check on anything to see if anything was okay, to see if somebody was actually breaking it or not. Took it upon himself as a civilian who wanted to do the right thing. Took it upon himself to try and make sure that the neighborhood that he lived in was safe. Only to come to an end by somebody who had the intent of wrongdoing, who had the intent to kill, who had the intent to murder without recourse. Now let's go ahead and put Ahmaud or Kyle in that situation. The color doesn't matter. The crime doesn't care. If either one of them was in that situation that David Dorn was in that night, I can guarantee you without a shadow of a doubt, a black man would have died or a white man would have died. That is the caliber of people who have a social-minded mindset of committing crimes. Those are the people we really need to focus on. And those are the people we need to stop allowing to just portray themselves as innocent in the eyes of the media. I still find it ridiculous that I can't remember if I believe he was a murderer. He was a murderer. But people wanted to let him go simply because of the fact that he had a very unique, if not handsome, face. The devil's always a lie, and he always provides a pleasing visage, if you will, to the common person. And I highly think it's time we stop lying to ourselves. I think it's time that we view the laws for what they are and for what they should be. Just like I think it's past time that the court system treats the laws as such for everyone. Because just like crime has no color, justice is blind and cannot see color. And the laws are supposed to be there to enforce that justice justly. Not just in name, but in action as well. I think it's high time that we as people realize that if we even want the police to be defunded, we need to know what the consequences will be. And we also need to be willing to deal with the consequences should we end up in a situation such as Kyle Rittenhouse. Or should we end up in a situation such as Ahmaud Arbery. One way or another, we as people need to realize that both these cases, justice and law, they are going to have an effect on the way we are in society. What that effect will be, I don't know. How this will affect everyday lives, I wish I could tell you. But regardless, the functioning people, the people who care about their safety, the people who care about their family, the people who care about their friends, we're the ones that have to watch out for ourselves. We're the ones that have to keep our loved ones home and out of these situations that are created by the evil criminal-minded. We have to keep our families close whenever it comes time to protect one another. I highly recommend that we get back to being an actual neighborhood again. Just because you have neighborhood council meetings doesn't make you a neighborhood, because some of those actually end up in arguments over the stupidest stuff. I remember a time, this was when I was young. I was very young. I was living in Texas, and believe me, being a black man in Texas being a young black boy in Texas wasn't exactly an easy thing to do, because racism definitely was there. I was told that I was not allowed to play with these toys because somebody's mom said I'm not supposed to allow blacks to touch these, just like I've heard the oh so common favorite N-word of racists. Wasn't directed at me. It was directed at a friend of mine at the time who was, I think he was Indian, but nonetheless, he had a complexion that fit the description. But nonetheless, my neighborhood, to which I'm still happy about, was mixed. We had Indians, white people, black people, which would be my family. One of my favorite restaurants was Chinese. Nonetheless, I was introduced to different cultures at a very young age, which makes me respect cultures. But that comes with being a functioning part of society, a functioning part of your environment, a functioning, rational, caring, and cultured human being. Accountability needs to come back. It should have been back a long time ago. And if anything, if we all start to look at ourselves and start to think with accountability, maybe most of these issues wouldn't have happened in the first place. But I don't know. I'm just a dude behind a microphone doing a podcast. 2022 is coming up close. It's just around the corner. It's hard to believe that this year went by so quick with so much drama and so many things that are still unanswered. This isn't a perfect nation, but we're gonna have to find a way to make this work. We're here. Black, white, yellow, possibly purple. Hell, who knows? Regardless, we're here. Me, I believe on the black side of things. I still believe we're owed reparations. But I also believe that doesn't give us, we as black society, the right to down other cultures, cuss at other cultures, insult other cultures. No. Because it's already bad enough that they do it. Now, granted, we are told that we should always turn the other cheek. But eventually, the other cheek is going to get bruised. It can end in one of two ways. One completely goes against that phrase. The other one basically keeps us from having to repeat that phrase. And that would be what I always like to say, treating people like people. If I can respect you and you can respect me, this whole situation wouldn't even be where it's at in the first place. If you can realize my pain when I'm hurting, just like you would expect me to do the same for you, we wouldn't be in this situation in the first place. We would have justice for everyone and laws that address everyone equally, with equity. Because there's a difference in equal and equity. You should look it up. It doesn't matter if you're the small man or the big man. Equity works for everyone on the same level. Mag dump.